Hi, it's Katrina. My friend David is actually going to be helping me out today, so we can give you a little bit more variety. Everyone say hi!
Number 10. The Devil's Rocking Chair. Zach Bagans' Haunted Museum in Las Vegas is a depository for all things weird and macabre. It houses every kind of oddity you can imagine, including haunted objects from around the world. One of these objects proved to be so dangerous that Zach recently had no choice but to remove it as an exhibit. The haunted object is a simple rocking chair. Zach acquired it from the museum of Ed and Lorraine Warren, a pair of paranormal investigators and the inspirations behind the Conjuring movies. The rocking chair from their collection was the influence behind The Conjuring 3, and it's known as the Devil's Rocking Chair. Zach set the chair up at his own museum in Vegas, making a whole exhibit out of it. But after at least 6 of his guests experienced negative reactions to the chair, and he himself experienced paranormal activity, he had no choice but to close the exhibit down. It was the first time he had ever done something like this due to an object being legitimately haunted. According to Zach himself, 6 people all burst into tears and sobbed uncontrollably when they witnessed the Devil's Rocking Chair. One of them even collapsed as if seeing the chair made her faint. Zach also claimed that he experienced the power of the chair firsthand. He became affected, started babbling incoherently, and his friend cried uncontrollably and ran out of his house. Zach's now stuck with a chair that he paid $67,000 for and is too haunted to keep in his haunted museum. Number 9. Haunted Taxidermy. Lawyers Douglas and Tyler Zotterell are the owners of a bizarre shop called The Wild Collection. The shop houses curiosities, peculiar objects, haunted relics, gothic decor, and a bunch of creepy taxidermy. Everything is for sale here, from a taxidermy zebra or lion to a twisted taxidermy unicorn. The unicorn was created by altering a wildebeest head to create a truly disturbing image of a mythical beast. But by far the strangest things for sale here are the haunted items. For example, the store has a nkisi in the front room, a demon vessel enclosed in a glass case. The case is to keep visitors from accidentally breaking the salt circle and touching the shattered shards of the nkisi, even though the vessel is already broken, meaning whichever demon was trapped inside of it has already been released. It's still too dangerous to let people play with. The demon may have left residue, which can seep into a person's being and cause terrible feelings. There's also a haunted doll here called the Christening Doll. It was supposedly used by parents in Victorian England who lost a child. They used the doll to communicate with their deceased kid, and it's said some fragment of the child's spirit is still in the doll. Number 8. King Tut's trumpets. After the discovery of Pharaoh Tutankhamun's tomb a century ago in 1922, the team of explorers found themselves at the center of a curse. It was said that any who opened King Tut's tomb and disturbed his eternal rest would be damned for eternity. In 1939, the BBC announced that they would perform a live broadcast playing 2 mysterious trumpets pulled from the pharaoh's tomb. One of the trumpets was silver, the other was bronze. Archaeologists are fairly sure they were used by the pharaoh himself to call his greatest fighters into battle. When the BBC said they were going to play the trumpets for the first time in 3,000 years, the British public freaked out. Many people were terrified that when the trumpets blasted, they would usher in a new era of chaos. And in reality, that may be exactly what happened. The trumpets were played live in the spring of 1939. Months later, Hitler invaded Poland and started World War II. Number 7. The Devil's Footprint. The Church of Our Lady dominates the Munich skyline in Germany with its great twin towers. It's a truly massive Gothic church that dates back 600 years. It's a historically valuable piece of the city, a great cathedral from the Middle Ages built in 1488. To this day, it serves as the seat of the Archdiocese of Munich, and it's the burial site of King Ludwig III of Bavaria and the Holy Roman Emperor Louis VI. But there's a much darker history here as well. During construction in the 15th century, the overseer was Georg von Halsbach. The project became increasingly expensive. The overseer started to run out of money, and it looked like the cathedral may not be finished. Legend has it Jorg van Halsbach then turned to the devil for help. He agreed to eliminate all windows so that the church was a place of complete darkness, if the devil would fund the remainder of the construction. The deal was made, and the devil went on his way. But Jorg von Halsbach didn't hold up his end of the bargain. Instead, he tried to trick the devil. When the devil showed up and looked through the front door of the church, he couldn't see a single window and figured the deal was solid. What he didn't realize was that Jorg had built the tall white columns to block the windows from view. But the ruse only worked for half a minute. The devil, feeling brave, took a step inside the cathedral to get a better look. That was when he saw the brilliant light flooding in through the windows. In fury, he stomped his foot through the floor. That footprint, allegedly smashed into the floor by the devil himself, is still there haunting the church to this day. Number 6. The Women from Lem statue. In 1878, archaeologists discovered a mysterious statue in Lem on the island of Cyprus. Nobody knows exactly what the statue is, what it's supposed to depict, or who carved it. Archaeologists believe it was created around 3500 BC, and that it may have been a fertility idol, perhaps made in the image of an unknown goddess. But it's not the history of the statue that makes it so fascinating. Instead, it's the ill effect the statue has on anyone who owns it. It may be called the Women from Lem officially, but most people just call the statue the Goddess of Death. The very first owner of the statue was a man named Lord Elfont. He acquired it shortly after it was dug out of the ground, but within a handful of years, every single member of his family was dead. The statue then changed hands to a second owner, Ivor Minucci. Within a few short years, his whole family was dead too. The third owner was Lord Thompson Noel, and the same thing happened to him. Within 4 years of receiving the statue, all his family members were dead and buried. The cycle of death continued without pause, next resulting in Sir Alan Biverbrook, his wife and his 2 daughters, all dead. But before the statue could do away with Riverbrook's 2 sons, they took the cursed idol and donated it to the Royal Scottish Museum in Edinburgh. Within a year, the museum curator who had touched the statue, coincidentally or not, was dead. Out of all the haunted objects out there, the Women from Lem is undoubtedly one of the most dangerous. And yet to this day, it remains behind a pane of glass in the museum, where people gawk at it every single day. At least it can't hurt anyone behind glass. Would you be brave enough to gaze at the Lem statue for more than 5 seconds? Tell me in the comments below, and hit subscribe while you're at it. Number 5. Letta the Haunted Doll. Letta, short for Letta Me Out, is one of the most haunted dolls in the world. The doll lives in Australia and is shrouded in mystery and superstition. She has very exaggerated facial features, giving her an instantly off-putting appearance, and the story of Letta is just as bizarre as its face. In rural New South Wales about 50 years ago, Kerry Walton explored an abandoned house with his brother in the town of Wagga Wagga. The house was supposedly haunted, and Kerry was curious to see how true the stories were. Inside, he found the wickedly grinning doll. He felt compelled to rescue it, and he and his brother gave it the name Letta Me Out. They named it that after the doll appeared to try and wiggle its way out of the sack they had put it in. Fast forward all these years later, the doll is now officially haunted. It's said to move around on its own accord, going from one room in the house to another without anyone touching it. Scuff marks can be found on the floor, supposedly left by the doll's shoes. Plus, some people who spend too much time in the presence of Letta report feeling sick, emotionally drained, and just generally weak. Nobody's sure where the doll came from or why it's haunted. It seems to be about 200 years old, probably built somewhere in Romania. The doll also has a full head of human hair, which some paranormal experts say could mean it's inhabited by the spirit of a lost child. As for the whereabouts of the doll, it's still with Kerry Walton and his family. Haunted as it may be, Kerry refuses to let it go. Number 4. The Foot of El Chupacabra. There is supposedly a very real mummified foot belonging to the chupacabra stashed in somebody's personal collection of oddities. The foot was allegedly taken in 1994 by a Puerto Rican hunter who came across the beast in the remote Yunque rainforest. He then traded the foot to a farmer who sold it to someone else, and it wound up in somebody's own secret collection. However, we have no idea where the rest of the body is, if there's another foot floating around somewhere, or really what the chupacabra even is. Legend has it the chupacabra was first spotted in Puerto Rico in the 1990s, but it's since been seen by eyewitnesses everywhere from the southern United States down to South America. The chupacabra appears to be spreading, and it has a thirst for blood. What makes the chupacabra a truly terrifying monster is that it sucks its victims dry of their blood, its victims being goats and livestock. There's never been a confirmed attack on a person, only on farm animals. Some people believe the chupacabra is an unknown species of mammal, some kind of dog-like creature or mutant cat. Others believe it could be a prehistoric reptile, but there are even wilder theories that claim it's an alien mongrel forgotten on our planet. Number 3. Witches in Australia. Superstition runs deep in Australian history, especially when it comes to the early settlers. The earliest Australian settlers, from between roughly 1788 and 1935, believed wholeheartedly in magic, evil spirits, and witchcraft. When something bad happened to these people, they almost always blamed it on evil forces. If someone in the family fell ill, if the crops were bad, it was always because of an unseen evil. To safeguard themselves against witches and the whims of malevolent spirits, these early Australian settlers buried magical items underneath the floorboards or behind their fireplaces. Underneath the subfloor of an Edwardian brick cottage in Marrickville, Sydney, a mummified cat was discovered. It was left buried near the doorway to deter any witch from entering the property. But the mummified cat isn't the only creepy object that's been found. At the historic Canterbury Villa in Stockton, a woman's shoe was discovered tucked in the fireplace. In the last few years, there have been shoes, children's toys, dolls' clothing, and hats, most of the disturbing objects from the 19th century, discovered in historic houses. The haunted objects were put there because they were seen as human articles. Things like shoes and hats mimicked people, and for some strange reason were thought to keep the evil spirits at bay. Many historical houses in Australia also come complete with witch markings, strange patterns scratched into walls, chiseled into brickwork, or burned onto wood. These markings were supposed to work as magical hexes to keep away witches. Number 2. The Dummerston Vine. In Dummerston, Vermont, about 200 years ago, something horrible happened to the Spaulding family. Members of the family began dying at inexplicably young ages. Each newborn Spaulding was afflicted by an unknown disease that slowly but surely sucked the life out of them, like some kind of parasitic life leech. The mysterious illness was almost certainly tuberculosis, which in the early 1800s was often attributed to one supernatural evil or another. The Spaulding family put the blame on a cursed vine. Yes, the vine of a plant. At the local cemetery, the family discovered a vine that had burrowed along the family plot. Each time the vine touched the coffin of one of their deceased family members, another one of them died. They were so desperate to rid themselves of the curse and save the family that they dug up the last body in the row of graves, hacked up the vine, and then burned the body. The family had grown so afraid that they really thought a haunted vine was to blame for the deaths of their young loved ones. Sadly, nothing changed with the destruction of the vine. In the Dummerston Centre Cemetery, you can still see where 6 of the Spaulding children are buried, their moss-covered headstones standing neatly in a row. Number 1. The Gambler's Hand. The Haunch of Venison is a small pub in Salisbury, England. It's supposedly one of the oldest buildings in the city, with the first mention of it being from around the year 1320. With 700 years of history, it's no surprise the Haunch of Venison is considered one of the most haunted buildings in the UK. Visitors say it's haunted, the owners say it's haunted. The general consensus is that the place is filled with ghosts. One of the ghosts is allegedly a gambler, a man who didn't exactly play his games fairly. The story has it that in the 18th century, the gambler was playing cards in the pub when he got busted cheating. As punishment, his arm was chopped off by the resident butcher, and then, for an unknown reason, the owner of the pub kept the arm as a souvenir and mummified it. The unusual object remained stashed in a disused bread oven inside the pub to keep it fresh and to stop it from stinking up the place. The gambler, with his hand forever stuck on display, continues to haunt the ancient pub and torment its proprietors. Which of these creepy objects would you dare take possession of? Let me know in the comments, and thanks a lot for watching. If you haven't yet, be sure to hit subscribe for more awesome videos from the channel. Come back soon, and I'll see you then.